This is Keith Helwig from Cops Corrections Videos. If you like my videos, please subscribe. I've been working tonight, and a big controversy on the radio is the reaction of the police officers in New York City that were being doused with water. Or, I should say, their lack of reaction. Now, I work in small villages. I work in a township and I work in a village, and they're small. The people wave at me with all their fingers. I haven't had problems with people throwing things at me. I did work in a prison where people did throw things at me, but that's a whole different story. Now, people are talking about the reaction of these officers. They're criticizing the officers. I look at it and I put myself in the place of those officers. They were surrounded by a crowd that was apparently hostile to them. Had those officers taken action against any of those individuals and tried to take them into custody, there's a very real probability that there would have been a riot. People are saying, well, they should have just snatched the guy up with a bucket and taken him in, whatever. You know, we can all sit back here and we can be armchair quarterbacks, backseat drivers, whatever you prefer to call it. But the fact of the matter is, those officers were pretty much on their own in that situation. Now, I'm sure they could have called in and they could have had all kinds of backup there. They could have had people arrested. You know, it's real easy to sit back and say what they should have done. It's real easy to sit back and say what could have happened, what they should do, what they didn't do, why they did it, why they didn't do it. You know, one of the things police officers have to worry about today, particularly in the large cities, is are they going to be backed up if they use force, if they have to shoot somebody. We've all seen the video of the female police officer who was almost beat to death because she was afraid to fire her gun, because she was afraid that she would lose her job, she was afraid she'd be prosecuted, whatever. We're all trained to use force in this job. We're all trained to use the amount of force necessary to stop a situation. Now, I used to be a defense tactics instructor. I used to be a firearms instructor. Instructions went through various forms. When I first started working in corrections, there was no defensive training. Basically, you did what you had to do. Then they went to using batons and things of that nature. And again, we were trained to use it, but we were trained to use it in emergency response units. Then somebody came up with the principles of subject control. They wanted to teach a uniformed method of self-defense and come along holds, things of that nature for all officers in the Department of Corrections. Now, when I was going through criminal justice in school, I had an FBI defense tactics course. Now, this was back in the late 70s, because I'm an old fart, and it was taught by FBI defense tactics instructors. Now, their theory at that time was if somebody's trying to hurt you, you hurt them. You didn't necessarily use the minimum amount of force necessary. You hurt them so they would stop wanting to hurt you. When I went through POSC and I became a POSC instructor, I had to teach a come-along hold, which I felt was pretty much ineffective. When I compared it to the come-along hold that I was taught through the FBI defense tactics, there was just no comparison. Well, from there, I went into police work. Police work had DAT, Defense and Arrest Tactics. Now, whereas POSC concentrated more on working with partners, DAT was more for individual officers. Once again, it's good training. It's effective training. At least we have some training at it. I wish they'd go back to the old FBI training, though. The moves were simple, they were effective, and they got the job done. And you didn't have to hurt people. There was a thumb and forefinger come along. If you did it right, that person was in enough pain that they knew more pain was coming if they resisted, so generally they'd stop resisting. This was after the Vietnam War riots, when people were having sit-down strikes, things of that nature. It always amuses me when I see a video now and there's 4 or 5 cops picking up a 120-pound girl. One of the things we learned in our FBI defense tactics course was how to get people to move, how to motivate them to move. You motivated them through pressure points. You motivated them through different holds, whether it was a mandibular angle, whatever. You didn't need 4 or 5 guys to pick up a 120-pound woman. Our training needs to be effective. We have to be able to handle the situations we're put in And not only do we have to be able to handle them, we have to be ready to handle them. You have to know your training, you have to use your training, and you shouldn't be afraid to use your training. Until next time, this is Keith Helwig from Cops Corrections. Stay safe and watch your back.